Welcome back, you guys. In this video, I want to play this so-called Shabalov attack, be it against the semi-Slav defense or against the normal Queen's Gambit declined. So I'm talking about this move pawn to g4. I'm going to play this move against any random opponent that I'm going to face. But first, let me run you through the theory behind this move pawn to g4. Actually, I got inspired from one of the games that Pragnananda played some years back. Anyway, by the way, I covered in detail whatever I'm going to be doing today in the video that has popped up in the card above. Be sure to watch that full tutorial video on the Shabalov attack. So quick recap, you start with d4 and then after something like d5 or knight f6, it doesn't matter, you go pawn to c4, the Queen's Gambit, and say black plays c6. The Slav, I'll just play knight f3. Even knight c3 is okay, but just following the main theoretical moves. Knight f6, I'll go knight c3. It's always good to start with your two knights when you're playing the Queen's Pawn game or the Queen's Gambit. So your King's Knight should be developed first. After e6, I plan to go Queen c2 or pawn to e3 first. And after something like knight bd7, as per theory, I will wait for black to move his dark squared bishop so that I can develop my g pawn. E.g., I will play something like pawn to e3, and then the moment black plays bishop d6 or bishop e7 or whatever, this is when I will go pawn to g4, knowing that the g7 pawn is no longer defended. And in my last tutorial video, we saw what happens if knight takes, you just go rook g1, and there are some problems to do with this g7 pawn. The whole idea is to take black out of their preparation and just to play an attacking game that most anti-Queen's Gambit positional players don't expect to see in the opening stage. If black plays the Queen's Gambit instead of the Slav, I plan to start with the move knight f3 first, as always, delaying this bishop development, and after something like knight f6, this is when I'll play knight c3, and the moment black will move his dark squared bishop, that's when I'll play pawn to g4. For example, even in this position after bishop b4, I plan to play pawn to g4, betting black to take so that I can go rook g1 and win that pawn, not allowing this game to be boring, and also stopping black from castling short, you know. The same strategy will work even against the knight f6 line, so-called Indian defense. I'll just go pawn to c4, inviting black to play d5. If they play pawn to e6 once again, I'll just start with my two knights, first of all beginning with my King's Knight to see what black is up to. If they play pawn to d5, well and good. I'll transpose back to the Queen's Gambit declined, 3 knights variation, and the moment black develops his dark squared bishop, that's when I'll go pawn to g4. Even after bishop e7, I'll just play pawn to g4. This is the move I am discussing in today's video. Anyway, after pawn to e6 and knight f3, the other move I expect to see is pawn to c5. Kind of the Benoni invitation, or maybe black wants to go into the Benko Gambit. But you see, even after this, I don't mind playing pawn to g4 after black develops his dark squared bishop somehow. Instead of going d5, I'll just stay solid and play pawn to e3. Why? First of all, I'm trying to avoid entering into the typical lines of the Benoni or the Benko Gambit. And secondly, I don't want to allow white to open this highlighted diagonal for the light squared bishop simply because I want to play g4 somewhere in the middle game or in the opening stage. Say if I go pawn to d5, this is all good, but after pawn takes and pawn takes, then d6, I'm not going to play pawn to g4 due to bishop takes g4. So you see one secret of the Shabalov attack or the alternatives to the Shabalov. You don't need to allow this e takes d5 capture because you're just going to help black to pave way for his light squared bishop and you won't have g4. That's why in this position, if my opponent tries to play some kind of the Benoni or the typical Benoni, I will just play pawn to e3 to avoid any nonsense. Not just allowing black to open up his ch diagonal for his light squared bishop. At this point, if c takes d4, I'll be glad to take back as long as the ch diagonal is not open. If d5, again I won't take because I don't want to allow this to happen. By the way, this is just my own strategy which I'm showing you guys. So I'll play something like knight c3 here And once again, the moment black develops his dark squared bishop to any of these squares, say bishop b4, this is when I will go pawn to g4 once again, betting black to take. I agree that in this particular line, g4 is somewhat dubious, but we can just call it a strategic move to test our opponent's patience. For example, if they take, you can see the eval bar goes all the way up to equal, if not above the line, because we just go rook g1 once again, and there are some problems. We just want to play an attacking game. If black doesn't take, and let's say they do this, well, I'll be glad to go pawn to g5, or even better, knight e5 in this position, just continuing to attack. If knight c6, I will go bishop g2, say knight takes, d takes, attacking the knight. And once the knight goes to d7, this is when I take on d5, say knight takes e5, I go bishop f4, just playing an attacking game, you know. I intend to play like this against any of my random opponents on leeches. Lastly, against the typical Benoni defense after c4 and pawn to c5, once again I'll just go pawn to e3, simple game. If cd, I will take back. Black should better play pawn to g6, but even then I can still rush out with these pawn storms. But there are some lines where black may rush out with this move, paving way for their light squad bishop. Well, here I'll just develop my knight, trying to see what black is up to. If e6, I'll be happy because I know next I might have pawn to g4 once the dark squad bishop moves. And this is now the plan of attack, by the way, where it is not even allowed for black to develop his light squad bishop out of the pawn chain due to queen b3. You see there are some problems on these highlighted squares, so you won't see many of your opponents developing their light squad bishop due to queen b3. If knight c6, you just go knight f3. Again, if bishop g4, you have bishop e3. If pawn to e6, according to theory, here you can even go pawn to c5, limiting the movements of this dark squad bishop. But anyways, I don't want to go deep into the plan of attack. This may be a different ball game. I'm more interested in the Queen's Gambit declined or the semi-Slav. This is what is common in the Queen's pawn game. And of course, our Shabalov attack is not applicable to any opening response. You need to be flexible in chess. Now, let me play a game. Stay tuned. And hey, don't forget to share this video, like if you can, and subscribe, because that encourages me to continue making more wonderful videos just like this one. Let's go. Right, so d4. I'm playing against a 2352 rated opponent. c4. There we see e6. So I'm just waiting for my opponent to develop his dark squad bishop for me to go pawn to g4. So first, let's begin with the king's knight. That's what I said. Bishop b4 check. Now knight c3. I know there is knight e4, but it's not much of a stretch. I'm going to figure it out. I have bishop d2. Okay. So this is some kind of the Queen's Indian defense, if I'm not mistaken. And the main line here is bishop g5. Bishop d2 is also playable, even pawn to e3. But sticking to our game plan of pushing our g-pawn, I think I might as well surprise my opponent here. So pawn to g4, I expect my opponent to be surprised by this move. You already know the idea. If knight takes, I have rook g1, indirectly attacking the g7 pawn. And the goal is just to make the game fun and just to play an attacking game, you know. So now I can simply play queen d3. So that if bishop takes, I take back with my queen. Not to mention that I'm also defending my knight. I guess black is going to play bishop e4 here, but even then I have queen d2. It's not much of a stretch. So far so good. I haven't lost any material. I thought we were going to have the Queen's Gambit declined on the board. I'm still waiting for my opponent to take on g4 though. There we see knight e4. So I can just go bishop g2. It's not every time you're going to see your opponents taking on g4, by the way. So this is a very good example to show you that don't always expect your opponent or your opponents to take on g4, because most of them will suspect you're going to play rook g1. After all, pawn to g4 is just an early advance, preparing for a deadly pawn storm after black castles shot. So this is great. I feel I'm not worse, although I will have to check this on Stockfish after the game to see where I made mistakes. By the way, this is a 10+5 casual rapid match. And this is not really the Shabalov attack. It just looks like the Shabalov attack. We can technically say this is the Queen's Indian defense, which involves the b6 pawn push and the fianchettoing of the light squad bishop. So my opponent is taking a bit of time here, which is one thing I like, because it means they are thinking. I guess the move we're about to see is knight takes c3, after which I'm gonna take back with my b pawn. Okay, I was wrong. So black just castled short. So again, one beauty of playing pawn to g4 is what I'm about to do next. Knight g5. It turns out black's knight on e4 is now pinned to the bishop on b7. Worse off, if black takes on c3 with his knight, I have mate in one. I don't think my 2352 rated opponent can fail to see this. So far so good. Let's see what my opponent would do in this position. Okay, bishop takes, check. I said take with the b pawn. What is that? What just happened? My 2352 rated opponent hanged mate in one. So you can see how tricky this opening can be, you guys. It seems this one move pawn to g4 takes many chess players out of their prep, out of their comfort zone. In fact, I'm beginning to believe that most chess players of nowadays only play by memorization. It's like this generation is too much into opening theory. So once you play something out of the book, most people just seem to get confused. It's like they can't play on their own. What was that, you guys? See this move, pop? Just like Susan Polgar once said, it all comes down to tactics. Chess is 99% tactics. So what made my opponent to lose this time is lack of tactical vision. Anyway, for now this is enough. Watch out for my next video, because I'm going to continue trying out the Shabalov attack or the alternatives to the Shabalov that involve the move pawn to g4. I mean, in the queen's pawn game. Right, now time for you to go and check out my new e5 defense course, which I have also linked in the comment section down below. And I'm glad to say so far it has received a lot of attention and people are getting it like crazy. So it's an opening response that you try against white's e4 opening. You're going to learn how to play against the Scotch, the Ruy Lopez, the Bishop's opening, 3 Knights opening, the 4 Knights game, the Vienna game, even the Italian game. So it's the complete e5 defense course that I just launched with my team. You better go and check it out. Thank you so much for watching this video. Until next time, have a wonderful day. Bye bye.